This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Mike Sedita.
Hello out there. Welcome to episode 126 of the Good Neighbor Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Sedita. Today we are joined by someone that's kind of apropos today. It's a little gloomy and a rainy day out here. We're with Darren Driscoll. He is with Rain Control Gutters. They have a couple of offices in Spring Hill and Odessa. Darren, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thanks for asking. How about yourself?
I am doing excellent. I probably should have asked this. What is your actual title? Are you the president, CEO, chairman of the board?
Yeah, let's say all of the above.
All of the above. I am the janitor, bookkeeper, the whole works.
It is a family business. You know, my wife and I are the owners. Our son that has 2 grandchildren works for us. So yeah, we're a family business, but I am the owner. Yes, sir.
All right. So you're the owner, but your wife is the boss. We got it. We understand.
Absolutely.
Understand. They've been there, done that. I get it. So just so you know a little bit about the Good Neighbor Podcast and what we do. So Good Neighbor Podcast was started in 2020 during COVID when everybody had to be socially distant. And it was designed as a way for business owners like you to be able to let the community know what you're doing and kind of get your message out there and connect. And over the past now 4 years, the Good Neighbor Podcast has evolved into this national brand. We have podcasts in Atlanta, in Virginia, in Denver. We have them all over the place. I'm lucky enough with the other things that I do in the community to be the person who does the Good Neighbor Podcast here. And with that said, tell us a little bit about your business.
Absolutely. Well, as I said, we're a family-owned business that specializes in residential seamless gutter installations and, of course, some leaf guard solutions. Those kind of go hand in hand, play hand and foot. We've been around since 1999. So it's come a long way, and it was even started before then from a good friend of mine's father started in 1973 over in Naples.
Wow.
And then kind of transitioned over here. But that's where we are. We're a seamless gutter company, family business. Take great pride in what we do.
So educate me briefly on, because I did a whole gutter system when I lived up north years ago. And that stuff has kind of evolved too, right? Like the technology has changed a little bit, but the seamless part is just you measure the house and it is one gutter. There's not pockets that match up and chance things getting caught and all that. That's the whole seamless part, correct?
Pretty much. I mean, what seamless really means is, for better lack of terms and for the average person, so I'll make it simple, is all your straightaways. All your straight sections are seamless. When you make a turn 90 degree, whether that be to the east, west, left, or right, you now have a connection point.
Right.
That is where I like to think that, we like to do the little bit of the extra, which not everybody does, but nonetheless, it's really not seamless at the corners. Then you miter those together, seal those together, and there's certain different ways that some people do it. But ultimately, anything straight is seamless if you can fit it in there. For example, you got a 200-foot piece of gutter. The neighbor's 20 foot away. You ain't fitting it in between the house. However, you're doing the side of a building, the back of a school. My building, our shop, 160 feet long, one piece of gutter.
Wow.
Yeah. So it can be done, but seamless ultimately is the straightaways are seamless until you make a turn, and then they're seamed together.
And it's funny is that when I first moved to Florida, I would look at houses and not a lot of houses would have, it seemed like not as many houses had gutters. And then when I lived up north, it seemed everybody had gutters just because of the amount of leaves, the amount of debris coming down on the houses. But when I moved into my first house in Florida, I ended up putting gutters on mainly because we were getting so much rain that it was just a diversionary thing to get the water away from the house, that type of deal. Is that, and the other big thing up north is there's gutters to move water away from the foundation because there's actually basements and water catches and all that stuff. Do you find, is that a real thing, or am I just imagining that?
No, you're not imagining at all. You and 75 million other people who move into our state here, our beautiful state, is that they're blown away. My wife and I tell customers this, and they get a kick out of it when I'm meeting with them and doing estimates. I say, my wife and I are truly blessed that the builders still haven't caught on, because it's absolutely absurd, Mike, to not have gutters in Florida. Never mind the northern state with the basement. We're built on slabs.
Right.
We're built on pads. That erosion that's created around the perimeter of your house, the reason for having gutters, is getting washed out on a weekly, daily basis.
Right.
We're in a hurricane state. We're in a wind state. we get more rain than most of those northern places you're referring to, and they don't put gutters on houses. I'm
Crazy.
blessed that they don't. There's a few small builders that I've been able to build relations with,
Right.
and that we do gutters for them. But again, they do very selective entry points, exit points, and then they skip everything else around the outsides. You know what I mean? It's kind of bizarre.
So before I get into my actual gutter questions, because I'll save that for the myths and misconceptions question that I usually like to ask, but what's your background? I mean, have you always been a guy has this always been your business? I mean, you say 1999, that's a pretty good run for a family business right now. Were you always a gutter guy? Were you a GC? What was your background?
So gutters, how I got into gutters was had a roofing business, had a roofing company. But, just a little before that, met the gentleman that I told you about whose father started Rain Control, kind of developed a partnership in retrospect where I still ran my roofing, he ran his gutters, but everything kind of went one after the other. And we started to grow that relationship in the late 90s, early 2000s. And that's how I kind of developed into it. And then over time, realized, roofing in Florida, it's a tough gig and very competitive, as gutters are, but nonetheless was able to make a choice to transition into one, stay with both, or just one or the other. Obviously chose the gutters. Had another guy involved who retired a few years ago. And that's kind of, now prior to that, you say 99, I'm a middle-aged 50 guy. So it's not
Me too.
So prior to that, complete opposite, was in, not a general contracting business, was in the newspaper, marketing, sales, and operations business and internet and stuff. Kind of what you do, Mike. Kind of blew the newspaper business out of the world.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, the newspaper business does have it still has its audience. The sad part is it's just kind of slowly dying off. They're just kind of going away. But I did read a really interesting article that I put up through LinkedIn that print media is dramatically making a comeback. There are so many people that now actually have gone back to reading the newspaper, maybe not necessarily for quote unquote news, but more the editorial type stuff that they're getting out of it. And magazine stuff has really gone up. I mean, it is. So were you here in Tampa doing that? Like Tampa Trib, Tampa Times, that type of stuff?
So I actually worked for the St. Petersburg Times as an independent contractor because I had previous years experience prior to that. And with a brother actually and a brother-in-law, we all had, 15 to 25 years experience.
Right.
We transitioned when they were the Times, the Times, and they changed names into Tampa. So,
right.
But I did that. That's what I did first. Yeah, when I first originally came to Florida, was definitely in the newspaper. I worked with them for about a decade, and I actually did that for part-time while I was still doing the gutters. I actually did that, but I subcontracted a lot of it out at that time.
Right. So, interesting. You and I are kind of in that same, age range. And my past life was working in finance and insurance and retirement stuff. And I was bored to death, miserable, like every day wake up and be like, oh, I got to put this tie on. Just hated it. Yeah. And then I accidentally stumbled into marketing and advertising and media buying and podcasting and all that stuff. So it's funny, parallels, but kind of crossing over in there. So
that's right, absolutely.
So I have a couple of questions here as you were talking about this. And the first question really is, like, as far as services goes, do you do everything down to, like, if I want to put in a French drain that's going to run along like because where I lived, the properties kind of came together. And if you're only listening to this and not watching it, I'm making a motion like with arc with my hands where the property kind of comes to the middle and there's that little bow and it catches all the water. Do you do French drain stuff with underground guttering and all that too, like the downspout stuff?
So no, we don't, and it's very rare. I don't think there's any gutter company that does both. However, obviously, it's things that go hand in hand. So when you're good at what you do, you align yourself with some good companies. We have companies we refer. One's out of Pinellas, one's out of Pasco, but nonetheless, drain companies because it's just a different set of tools. We're bringing
it's digging, it's boring that stuff out.
Irrigation sprinkler companies, landscaping companies, that's your best bang for your buck. And they all do it now because, as you said, a lot of it, depending on your lot, I have where I live, same thing, underground drains because I need it very close to my neighbors beside me. So it dictates, but and it is a good thing to have when you need it. And as you said, your lot usually dictates that, how much runoff you have and what's the space.
And when you do what you do for the amount of time that you do it, you build relationships that you go to do a job and you quote the gutters and you start talking to the owner and he says, I need to dig this up and put in a French drain, and you say, like, check, I got that guy, and I need to redo the whole sprinkler system because I'm ripping everything up. Check, I got that guy. And while I got it all ripped up, I really need to remodel all the landscape design. Oh, I got that guy. And it's nice because you guys are always kind of doing that crossover one to the other. But the one person I'm curious about as you were talking was builders. So is there like, if builders aren't putting gutters on, I mean, like, look, there's so many new homes, right? Like the communities we're talking about in your area, whatever, those are new homes. I had this conversation with somebody out that way, and we were talking about these like peripheral things, like water filtration systems and gutters are two of those. So when people go to buy a new home now, it's like almost like checklist. What do you want? Oh, do you want to add this feature? Do you want to add that feature? And I thought almost every home has a water filtration system in it to help with soft water now, but I found out newer homes, that's kind of like an add-on. Do you have relationships with any builders where they're saying, hey, look, Darren, bring your crew in. We're building track, for lack of a better term, track homes where we're loading them up. And we're at that phase where you used to be a roof goes on, then gutters. Are you working with any builders to be like their gutter team that's coming in and doing those jobs?
Yeah, absolutely. And at one time, a great number of them. It's kind of dwindled down from what it was, but a lot of smaller builders like Artistic Homes, Gulfstream Homes. These are smaller builders that don't build like Lennar and MI. These people,
right?
And they'll people that'll do entry points, exit points, main areas, but and as well as roofers, have some good relationships with local roofers where they sell a job. They know the gutter's got to come off. They're 25 years old. Same type of situation,
right?
Where they're referring and we're kind of following in afterwards. But as far as builders, it's funny you say that because as a business owner, if I told you how many times I go into the new sales offices in these big communities, and I would tell you it's hundreds, okay, in the years, and just say hello, just drop business cards off, tell them a little bit about yourself, because believe it or not, even the salespeople are surprised they don't offer gutters. And a lot of times what they'll do is, they'll have my business cards on the table and, they'll start giving them customers close. Somebody moves down here from New Jersey, bought a house, $700,000. He finds out he doesn't have gutters. He goes through the roof.
Right. You're talking to one. You're right. Yeah.
You killing me? Are you crazy? So it's nice in that sense. I wish they did it more. And I've even gone as far as trying to offer certain builders, why don't we make a deal? And they don't seem interested. And I think it's because of that 5-year warranty. Gutters pretty much have a 20 to 30-year shelf life. Really shouldn't be any. So maybe it's a warranty thing. They don't want to be called back. I don't really get it. And I think it's again, I'm appreciative that they don't do it. But at the same time, I really think they're missing an opportunity because like anything they charge for, they double the price. You get an upgrade, you pay double. So why wouldn't they offer gutters? Charge the customer $10, put it in their mortgage, and then hire me for $6. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, that's kind of where I was going with that. I mean, and the other couple questions I had, one is more of a business side, and the other is more of an actual product side. But from the business side, when you're sitting there going, hey, I could do roofs or I could do gutters, do you lean towards gutters because it's probably less material, I would think. It's probably less. I mean, I know it's labor intensive, but it's probably less labor intensive because you don't have to strip a roof. If you're stripping an old gutter, you got some recycling material. And I mean, from a logistics standpoint, are the crews less? I mean, is it a 2-man crew, a 3-man crew? How many crews do you guys run? Is all that come into it?
It's good questions, and you're 100% right where your thinking is. And so with roofing, crews way larger. Way more exposure to potential problems. Rain comes out of nowhere in Florida. You have to be safe while you're running around a roof trying to cover up a house. So absolutely, and you can't. So the combination of a lot of those things, harder to get good people to want a roof in the climate that we live in. So all those challenges made it real easy to make the decision. On top of as you said, the crews. Gutter crews are typically 2 men. Sometimes one guy can do a small job.
Right.
They're all 2-man crews. If I need 2 crews on a big job, I'll put 4 guys. But they're typically 2-man crews, less materials in a sense that you said, less storage space that I need, because their 20-foot trailer becomes their warehouse.
Right.
You know what I mean? I have a warehouse, don't get me wrong, but all their tools.
But they're going and stocking up and then going and doing a job, and that's it.
And then out to the jobs all day long. Now I have, we have 4 full-time crews.
Wow.
Running 3.5 right now because we're floating a guy. This time of year is typical through December, January, but pretty much 3 full-time crews, which is 6. And then I have myself and my son, who's obviously out there, and my wife.
And your wife, I'm assuming she's not up on the ladder. She's actually she's running the office.
Yes, exactly. Our office manager, accountant, and stuff. Now, as an owner, when you say running, absolutely does all the books and that stuff. But as an owner, I'm pretty OCD. Like you and I come from the same neck of the woods in terms of our age. I answer the telephone. Only me. I'm a business owner, and if I'm with somebody within 10 minutes, they get a call back. I've tried answering services, and they're great, and I know the future's this, but a lot of people still want to talk to somebody, and I think it goes a long way, and I can put a lot of fires out just by answering the phone and running 15 messages at 6:30 at night. You know what I mean?
And I do the same thing. Like, listen, running the business that I run between the publishing and the digital media and the podcasting and all that stuff, I have a team for sure, but the buck stops with me. It's my name on the podcast. It's my name in the magazine. It's my face. It's Norman. It's my dog. It's on my brand. So, look, if something hits the fan, somebody's got to handle it. So it always ends on me. So I totally get that. And that's it's so funny. Technology kind of takes everybody to a point, and then at some point there's that like backlash to, I don't want an answering, so I don't want to press 1 to get to the owner or 2 to get to accounting. I want to just talk to the guy. So yeah, that's great. I mean, the last question I have as far as the gutters themselves, and this is something I ran into when I had mine, and like the technology may have changed, but I had a gutter system in New Jersey that it was almost like a cover over the gutter, and all the water in theory was supposed to run off and loop around and go into the gutter, and no leaves would ever get in there. And that did truly work. The problem is in New Jersey, when it's 19 degrees, all that water that freezes on that nice round little lip blocks everything, and it became ineffective for me. So I don't know, is that still a system? Is that a system we would even use in Florida, or is it all kind of those screens that kind of weed everything out?
Combination of screens and nylons. It's funny because being a gutter owner, you got to know a lot about leaf guard. Over 20 years, we've sold different various types.
Right.
I won't point any fingers, like Leaf Filter, which is the biggest advertiser. We all get their literature, and I don't want to be
direct mail every other week.
It's a nightmare. It's the worst stuff for Florida. Now, Florida's roofing codes are different, where your shingles cut to the edge of the roof. It can't have any overhang. That is unique in Florida, unlike 80% of every other state. 90% don't have to do that. The thing you're referring to is a gutter helmet. I'm not a big fan of them either.
Yeah, I wasn't.
Therefore, shoots over, it doesn't work. With our company, I sell 2. There's 300 products out there. I will only sell 2. I don't believe in one that screws in, because you're putting holes in all your brand new gutter system. Ridiculous. And everybody sells it, including Leaf Filter. I don't believe in one that glues in, because in Florida, with the intense heat, the expansion and contraction, glue
loosens it.
Just loosens and comes undone. Therefore, we specialize in 1 or 2 fairly expensive. Where you need leaf guard, you need it. And the idea is to keep the stuff out of your pipes. Cleaning out a gutter isn't so bad on a 1-story. Getting your hand down a downspout that makes 2 twists and turns is another problem.
Right.
The leaf guard is for 2 reasons: to keep the stuff out of the gutter, more so to keep it out of the pipe. And then your maintenance only becomes blowing your roof off if it requires. You know what I'm saying? But in New Jersey, what you're talking about, very popular. And ice, there's certain places it just doesn't warrant it because of what you're saying. And the water overshoots the gutter.
Well, and the thing for me, I mean, the difference too is, listen, I'm not saying we don't have leaves in Florida. Like, I have these little leaves here where I'm in Wesley Chapel, but in New Jersey, we had these giant oak tree leaves that just shed this stuff. And, like my first bulldog, he was like, He was like the leaf pile killer. Like he would see a pile of leaves and he would rip through it. And I'm talking like the size of a car leaves. And that's all coming down on your house. Here, the big thing is like those pine needles that are getting caught in the drain. And I think what ultimately happens, like where I am now, the gutter is so backed up because the mud and the stuff coming off the roof and the sand has all packed it and compacted down so hard, and it goes into the ground. But once it gets backed up so far down in there, now I got to have guy come in and roto-rooter it out. And if it's PVC pipe, nobody wants to roto-rooter anything because you're just going to tear the crap out of it. So, it's funny. My first house in New Jersey, we had clay pipe underground. It was built in the 50s. Once that disintegrated, all of a sudden my front lawn is like a pond. Like I could throw a couple trout out there. But yeah, it's just different. And it's crazy the way the technology develops. But that particular product you're talking about, it didn't work well for me when I had it. So
it doesn't work well here. It doesn't. Yeah. Like you said, pine needles and little leaves. I told you we have a snap-in one. Very usable, very inexpensive. I've tried every single one of them, Mike.
And it works.
I've tried them all. And people look at me and go, wow, you're brutally honest. And they've tried them and they've had to rip them out. And I've said, listen, even the pool gutters is the biggest inkling. There's the biggest misconception, if there is one. We all have these screen enclosures. We've got the super gutter. What isn't what I do, the super gutter, although people will ask us about leaf product for it and to clean it, which we would do. But I won't put a leaf product in a super gutter unless someone was tying my hands, because it's not meant to have one, because the only options you have are glue or screw. And that's a $30,000 pool cage. And all you're going to do is now it's between your roof and your screen. All the debris, because it's launched in there, gets caught up in there. You still then got to go clean it.
Right.
So why all these companies run around selling people this pool gutter guard? It's a joke. And my son loves it, because he goes and cleans those gutters, and then we got to remove the gutter guard. Like, why did you buy this? Because it's a nightmare, because the water's coming in your lanai.
Yeah, it literally is. My house in New Tampa, it was a sheet. It was just a sheet of water would come down off the roof, and you're like, what do I even have going on up here in my lanai to get me out? I can't even get out. So I do, listen, we've talked for 20 minutes just about gutters, which I never thought would be humanly possible. But when I'm talking to somebody that's been doing it for 24 years, it's possible. So, but aside from all that, what do you guys do for fun? You have grandkids, you have kids. Are you doing family stuff, or do you guys like to go out on a boat? What do you do?
So that's a great question. So I got two sons, a 30-year-old and a 28-year-old. We have two sons. I'm going to rephrase that. My wife is part of that.
Good catch. Good catch.
We have two sons whom we love and we're very close with. The younger one, the 28-year-old, works with us, has for a number of years, has two grandchildren. So we're a big family. We do a lot together. I would say we have dinner 3 or 4 times a week together. Wow. We don't live together. So that's number one. Number two is I was a basketball coach. You get that voice for like 20 plus years, a varsity basketball coach. My boys dibbled in a little bit of Division II basketball. So I love sports. I'm a sports junkie. There isn't a sport I don't like. I'm a big football fan. Love what's going on. I'm a huge 49er fan, as my boys are. So whoa, we gotta stop. We got to stop right there. So number one, I know your boys have heard you yell suicides, get to the baseline. I know I've heard that been yelled a bunch, but you're a 49ers fan. You live in Tampa. I don't think it's going to happen. I think look, I'm on a Tampa, I'm in Tampa. I think it's going to be Lions Niners is my opinion, but what the hell do I know? I just run a stupid podcast and sell magazines. But if you end up with the Bucs and the Niners in the NFC Championship game, it's like a house divided? How are we talking here? So it's funny. I'm only a 49er fan because I'm the youngest of 6 siblings. I got 4 older brothers that were all Cowboy fans. And back good choice. Good choice. So when Dwight Clark made that catch and they were crying and I was just a giffer, I remember like it was yesterday. And from that point on, it's kind of weird because you're right. I have no inkling to California. I've been there and I've been to see many games.
Right.
But, I kind of think Baltimore is going to be tough for anybody to knock off. And
I do too.
Christmas. But, it's football. Anything can happen. It's why it's the greatest game. Let's not kid ourselves.
We get into this for a couple minutes here, I do every year in August, right as training camp's ending, I do a video predicting everything. And you can find it on my YouTube channel. It's there. But couple of the highlights for me this year, and I've been, listen, I'm a Giants fan. I grew up walking distance to Giant Stadium, so I've been suffering for a decade. But I've shouted for 2 years that stupid tush push, once Jason Kelce retires, that thing is over because he's the reason it works. It has nothing to do with Jalen Hurts. Yeah. Jalen Hurts is this is the highlights of that video. Jalen Hurts is overrated. He's got a great offensive line and a great receiving core. We saw what happened after his weapons started to disappear. Dak Prescott, ridiculously overrated. All his big success early in his career was with the best offensive line NFL has seen in decades. San Francisco is the most complete team. Lamar Jackson's just dangerous now that he has tools. But I will tell you, my ex-wife's family's Buffalo Bill fans, so I've kind of like semi-adopted them. I have a sympathetic feel for them. And for the past couple of years, I thought they had it. This year, I think the advantage they have is there isn't that expectation anymore, that they've kind of flown under the radar. So I think Buffalo, if they have a shot, they could go and get them. I think it was probably, and we don't know what Patrick Mahomes is going to do on the road. He's never had to play a road game. Right. So, but if I'm sympathetically, I kind of like to see the Lions. I mean, anytime I know you're a 49er fan, but like the story is so great. I mean, it's fantastic, but
it's the only team I wouldn't be disappointed. I mean, obviously, as a fan, I'd be disappointed, but the only team I'd want to lose to is the Lions. They go,
I get it. I totally get it. And me as a Giants fan, like on Twitter, like watching people on Twitter, they're like, Giants fans, we're all like rejoicing in watching the miserable city of Philadelphia lose because those are the worst. Philadelphia is the worst fans because they've never won anything. They won one Super Bowl on a fluky play, but for 70 years they've been awful, and they act like they're this NFL royalty and they're garbage.
In another life, we could be related, Mike. I'm telling you, I don't have a podcast that states some of my predictions, but I had a few that came true as well. And a few of them are similar to yours or the same. That's pretty wild. Some things we have in common. You've mentioned Bulldog twice. Let's just touch on this quick.
Go ahead.
Logo. If you haven't seen my logo, 12 people calling. You're the guy with the doghouse. So my logo is a doghouse with a bulldog. My two French bulldogs are Rain and Storm, who are now on the new Wrapped company vehicle. Their pictures are it was part of the new edition. So I'm a bulldog guy. That's what I was getting at.
So listen, in my neighborhood where I am in Seven Oaks, my neighbor across the street has a bulldog named Mr. Snorkels. I have Norman. He's in every one of my magazines. Norman is in 12,000 homes every single month in Pasco County.
I've seen him. That's where now I recognize the magazine.
And you know, the funny thing, Darren, is people literally, like I'm about 6 foot, about 230-pound guy, and people will see me with Norman, and they don't even look at me. They're like, "Hey, Norman, how you?" Like they recognize him before they recognize me. But my other neighbor has she has 3 French bulldogs. She just got a puppy. I'm like, "Are you out of your mind?" But they are adorable, and we do have in 54 West Life, we have a pet contest going on. You need to get the office manager, the boss, to upload some pictures of the pups.
Yeah, and
we'll get them in there, and we'll get them entered.
They're going to be traveling around the streets in the new car soon.
That's great. That's absolutely awesome. So I will tell you, the one last prediction I'll tell you, because we're getting close on time. I got on there in the beginning of the season, and I said C.J. Stroud is the better choice, just his build, his demeanor, his play, than Bryce Young, and I think the two of them are going to have drastically contrasted years, and that is out of all the stuff. Like I liked Stroud from minute one, whatever it is, but that's my one really good prediction. Now
that's great. I thought Bryce would do kind of what he did. I was never a big fan, but I don't want to jump on him, but I love what Stroud's doing since week 6. I love what Jordan Love's doing. I'm a little nervous. He looked like Rodgers throwing off his back foot the other day. I know, but I'm telling you. But
he's not going to do that against your defense, though. He's not going to.
So.
Yeah, I mean, listen, when you're leaving guys tight ends 30 yards wide open downfield, you can fling it off your back foot, and he's just waiting on it.
I know. I agree, but I'm so happy for those two guys. I said to my sons the day before the playoffs started, I said, you know what? These two rookies are going to make a name for themselves.
Yeah. I mean, Jordan Love looks good. I didn't see that coming. I was kind of, the jury was out on him, but I didn't see that coming. So listen.
The last half of the season was great.
He turned it around. I mean, listen, Tommy Cutlets for the Giants beats Green Bay, and then since then, they've just been on fire. So what's the one thing, people listening to this, besides you being a family man, family business, sports lunatic, French bulldogs, what's the one other thing we need to know about the business?
I love to tell people because they're amazed when you have a business as long as we have them. I got 3 guys that are 3 crew leaders. Bill, 23 years. Eric, 22 years. Kyle, 15 years. They're still our crew leaders, still with us. As a business owner, couldn't be more proud, couldn't be more supportive of them. Wish every week could do more for them. We're blessed. We've got some of the best guys who take pride still today, because there's a lot of companies, you know this, Mike, they come, there's a market in Florida, I'm going to jump on the wagon and get it. They don't care. We truly have a staff that cares, and we couldn't be more proud of them, and we're blessed to have them.
And Darren, what's the way if someone's going to contact you? They moved here from Bergen County, New Jersey, and they're dealing with this miserable 40-degree weather and rain, and they're pissed off because the water is coming down in sheets. How do they get a hold of you? What's the best way to go?
Couple ways to go. Obviously, raincontrolgutters.com. Follow us on Facebook. Call us at 813-949-RAIN, which is 813-949-7246.
So, folks, if you're listening to this and you hear my Yankee accent and you're like, well, this is a Yankee, he must have had this experience. I have not personally used, rain control gutters, but I can tell you, anybody that is a sports fan, family man, shows the longevity in the community. That's what we're about here. Good neighbors, helping neighbors. Bulldog guy, Darren, I have a feeling we're going to talk a little bit more after this, but if you're out there listening, contact 813-949-7246. That's 813-949-RAIN, and reach out, get your gutters taken care of, make sure you're coming in from the rain, and then let these guys help you out. Darren, thank you for being a good neighbor. Thank you for being on the Good Neighbor Podcast.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast Passcode. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnppasco.com. That's gnppasco.com, or call 813-922-3610.